screen look like? Okay, I'm trying to test something out, but I don't know if it's working right now. If you come in to the broadcast, let me know if you can see me. I'm not quite sure how this is looking since I started in the on my computer and then tried to go live on my phone. Oh, I think it's working. Okay. I'll make this other part go away now. All right. Hi, everyone. Hello, replay viewers. How are you doing? This is Isa Betancourt, your host of the Bugscope. Hi, Deanna. Hi, Miriam. Hello, Frank. How are you guys doing this evening? I wanted to share with you, if you haven't heard yet, that I am doing a fundraiser to raise funds for a microscope or a stereoscope, or I like to call it a dissection scope. And it'll be for use for these broadcasts. I love showing you guys things up close. I love showing you the insects that I catch right in my house, the insects that I catch right outside my door, the insects that I catch when I'm out and about. And not only is it fun to just hold them in my hand and show you, but with some of them, they're very small. And so having a microscope can help us take things to the next level for an even closer look. Hi, David. How's it going? Yeah, so I have, David just shared the link, so thank you. It's clear. Great. Mr. Ultraman, I'm glad to see that it's clear. Yeah, I'm still getting used to a few things here on HAPS. So I have two things. Hi, Peter. How's it going? That are to share with you. One is how a drab-looking moth looks under a microscope. So if you're like, Isa, like you already have a microscope. Oops, let me scroll this way. If you're like, Isa, you already have a microscope. I've seen you use it. Let me take this on. That microscope that I use is one that I have through my employer. And it's not my personal one I'm trying to get one that I can use like specifically for the cause of live broadcasting and showing you guys cool stuff. And so one of the things I want to show you, one of the two things specifically that I want to show you today during this broadcast is one, that spring is here. Look at these beautiful flowers. And when the flowers are popping up, not only are the flowers popping up during spring, but that means that the insects are also popping up and coming to life. They're coming out of diapause, which means it's one of the most exciting times of the year when the world around us, up in the temperate areas of the world, come to life with lots of insect and plant and animal life. Really exciting time of the year. Hi, everyone. Hi, Peter. Lee, thank you so much for contributing to the GoFundMe. Hello, CM. How are you doing? Hello, David. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, beautiful snowdrops. And look, it's amazing how some of them go through the leaves that have been covering them and keeping them warm during the winter. So spring is here. That's what I'm bringing this over to celebrate, and the snowdrops as well. Hi, Pablo. How's it going? And so that means that there are a lot of insects that are also about to join us in the world, and so I'm really excited to show them to you. And as some of you guys might, going back inside to show you the next thing that I want to show you, and as some of you might have experienced, sometimes when I do transition between, right, here we are back at the table. Whew. Sometimes when I do transition between showing you guys things on my phone and then showing you things through the microscope, it can be a little bit of a rough transition because I need to use this piece right here on top of this microscope, but with the new one that I'm fundraising for, I'll just be able to connect it right to my computer for a really, really smooth transition, which will definitely make the broadcast more accessible. And that's my goal with the Bugscope, to make the world of entomology more accessible to broad audiences. And then people will be able to appreciate the world of entomology and this planet that we live on, and we'll be able to celebrate that here on the Bugscope so much more because it won't make people nauseous or cause kids to lose their attention if that transition from this to me like fidgeting and getting my phone into this. It'll just make that transition so much smoother. Yeah, okay, let me see the comments here. Thank you for the street cred award, Frankman. And I see Pablo says that his garden is blooming too, which is awesome. So the next thing I want to show you, so I have this moth here. It's the second moth that I've seen this spring. The first one, if you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen it. I saw it at the window, probably attracted to the kitchen light. And this is the next thing, the next moth that I found today, fluttering by the window as well. And it looks like a very plain drab moth, but we're going to take a look at it under this scope right here. And it's a great, you'll see a lot of, you'll see. Okay, hope you guys are well. So yeah, the link to the fundraiser, David put it in the chat, and I'll put it in the chat too. And thank you guys for the super hearts, because all of those will also go towards the cause of raising funds for the dissection scope that I'm raising money to purchase. Thank you, David. And Deanna says there are 2 magpies building a nest outside my apartment. It's great. Awesome. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is that with these insects, actually with this insect, this is what we're about to look at is a spring cankerworm moth. And they start to take flight in here. I'll get this set up so you guys can look at it while I talk about it. This spring cankerworm moth, they emerge in February or March when the weather gets a little bit warm. So they're one of the first things that we do see, which is such a cool thing about nature and knowing the plants and knowing the animals, is that you can see the ticking of time. Who needs a calendar when you know the biology and you know the organisms around you and how they pass and how their life cycles cycle through as the cycle of as the Earth cycles around the sun. Pretty cool to think about. Okay, here we go. Take you guys off my tripod and we'll take a look at this up close. So here's our moth that we're going to look at. It's alive. It's the spring cankerworm moth. Looks very plain, brown moth. Probably wouldn't think twice about it. But when you get up close, you can unlock a whole other world. So here we go. The tricky thing with this setup is that sometimes the holder pushes the buttons on my phone. Okay, but it looks okay now. Okay, focus time. Okay, so here's our moth, spring cankerworm moth. And so what's weird about them, this one's definitely a male, and it's very obvious to know it's a male once you know what the difference is between the male and the female. Yeah, thank you for the super heart, Pablo, and David for the Supporting Women Award, and David Howden for that as well. Josh, how are you doing? So here is the moth, and we'll zoom into its head. I'll also zoom in a little bit using the digital zoom so you can get out of that vignetting or that curve you see from the edge of the circle of the microscope. And here is the head of our little moth friend. You can see these are what scales look like up close. And there's a lot of variation in scales when it comes to moths and butterflies. You can see the scales right between the eyes here have all those fringes, which are pretty cool. And it looks almost like it has little eyelashes there with those that little wheel of scales that are around each of the eyes right above there, which is pretty cool to see. And then we can zoom out and go down the body. You can see even its body, that bump in the middle there, that's its thorax, is also covered with scales, pretty much the same as the wings are. And this is why when you touch a moth or a butterfly, it feels slippery. Scales give moths and butterflies their superpowers. They're able to slip away from their prey because the scales fall off, and any predator that's trying to catch it is just left with a handful of scales. And as you look at it, you might notice, I see some other colors in there, and that's true. You're seeing iridescence, so some structural coloration of the photons bouncing off the surface of these. And this is why a magnification is such a powerful tool. It unlocks a whole other world, and that's why I'm very excited to get my own microscope so I can continue live broadcasting these scenes. especially when I'm off in Borneo next year. Okay, and over here you can see that some of the lines and scales are longer and it's kind of a different color, not as iridescent. That's a good example of the radiation, sorry, the variation, not radiation, that you see. I'll zoom out so we can take another look at, get more of a sense of where we're looking. So now we're looking at the edges, the edges of the wings, or the fringe, that part where it changes very starkly from the shiny and lighter grayish colors to the darker grayish, that's where the fringe is. And you can see the fringe is made up of all these longer scales. And many moths and butterflies have that. Yeah, that makes the wing look a little bit longer and probably helps them avoid predation, because if something bites it, it might not even get the wing membrane, which is what all these scales are attached to. It might only get a layer of coating of scales on its wings. So not only might there be birds trying to eat moths and other things, there might also be spiders. If this goes into a spider web, it can escape more easily because the scales will fall off and the moth will fly away. And there's a spider called the ladder spider, which you can find in Central America. I amazingly and happily stumbled upon it when I was studying abroad in Costa Rica. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I saw the orb part of the web, you know, that classic spider web shape. And I was like, oh, that's a cool, nice orb web. But then my headlamp caught the shimmer of the rest of the web, which was like a ladder. There were just rungs going down to the ground in the structure of the spider web. And that was the spider's way of counteracting the scales. So a moth that runs into that web, it'll lose some of its scales at the top of the web, and then as the moth tumbles down, it will lose more and more scales until all that's left is the membrane of the wing, and then that will stick to the web. That will be the fate of an unfortunate moth. So now we're zooming in on the antenna, which are a little hard to access from this angle because they're pretty tucked in, but you can see little spikes coming off of that too. Thank you, Brett, for the Supporting Women Award, and thank you, Gemma, as well, for the Super Heart. Very much appreciated. Hi, Georgia. How are you doing? So the scales do not grow back. That's a good question or comment. They do not grow back, so they have a finite amount of scales, but they don't need to grow back because moths, once they're an adult, and butterflies, they're looking for a mate, they're looking to lay their eggs, and then they're done, their life cycle. Then they retire, so to say, expire maybe. And yeah, just a really beautiful mosaic right here that we're looking at on the wing. Very drab looking moth if you look at it at first glance. This is the spring cankerworm moth. To give you some more size perspective. And I'm gonna put this back up here now. Whoa. Whoops. I dropped my phone. Okay. My bad. Back on the tripod. So those are the sorts of things we can do with the power of the microscope. So if you enjoy, taking a look at those views, I don't know why this is a little bit crooked right now, but I'll turn my head maybe. Then please consider chipping in to my GoFundMe campaign, and super appreciated. Also, like I said, any awards given here also will go towards that cause as well. Gemma says they look all plain until you zoom right in. Beautiful colors. Yeah, there's so much detail in this world that we live in. I'm gonna see if I can. Where did I put my other tripod? I don't know why this one's a little crooked, but hopefully you guys don't mind too much. Maybe I'll just use this other stand that I have. Okay. One moment as I switch over. Thank you for the great view award, Frank. Okay. There we go. I think that works. But now I need to put it over by my computer so I can see comments. What's the largest? Guru, are you coming over to HAPS? What's the largest wingspan moth? That's the, well, it's definitely the largest wing area is the atlas moth. I don't know if it's also the largest wingspan, but the atlas moth. I guess that's life. Really, says Gemma, you never truly know the beauty of something until you look closely. That's true. Yeah, that's a very widespread, that can be applied across many different things and topics in life. The scientific name of it is, one moment. Scientific name is Palacrita vernata. And what's really cool, I'll share this link in the chat on HAPS, is that what's really cool is I know that this one is a male, because at first I would think it's not, but I know it's a male because it has wings, and the females don't have wings in this species, which seems so weird. It's a moth. Moths have wings, but there are some moths that have lost their wings. It's pretty wild. Oh, Dan, great question, because I think that will be very helpful when HAPS gets the listen while minimized phone locked feature. Cool. So there's the link with the scientific name and some pictures of where you can see the pictures of the females too. They just look like little fuzzy creatures with 6 legs. And at first you might think it's maybe a true bug or something else, but it is a moth. Just lost its wings over time. I don't know why, but it doesn't need it because this species lives on. I do think that this group, it's considered a pest. If you look up the fall cankerworm moth on, if you guys want me to put it back under the scope, let me know. But if you look up the fall cankerworm moth online, then a lot of the resources that you come across will say that it's a pest and give you ways to manage it. But I'm pretty sure it's native to our area. I didn't see anything saying that it's not native. Hi, Nordic Mike. And last year, I'm pretty sure that this moth, or the caterpillar for this moth, was what I saw the robins and what I saw the cardinals and other birds just like loading up on. And robins, I saw the birds, they'd have like 4 bright green caterpillars in their mouths, and I think it was this canker moth. And so I'm going to see if I can rear them out this year and to confirm the identity. But it's not necessarily just a pest, it's also a food source for our local wildlife. And if it's native, then it's part of the balance of the ecosystems. And so it's not necessarily something that we need to completely get rid of, kind of like the spotted lanternflies, which are completely invasive to this area. But evolution is strange indeed. Yeah, so all the moths, I see Dan saying they just crawl around, some female moths. Yeah, so in this case, they just start crawling up the side of the tree, up to the top, where they lay their eggs on the twigs. So they do have this big journey because they pupate in the ground, and then the males will find them, mate with them, and then they just crawl up the tree. Their job is to crawl up the tree, lay eggs on the twigs. So, yeah. Are robin eggs always blue? I don't know. I think so, but I don't know. I bet you there's always an exception in biology. So, David says, interesting. It is so similar to our Alsophila iscularia, which also has an apterous female. Yeah, so if you want to know some entomology terms, apterous means pterous means winged. So apterous means no, it's not winged. So that's why Lepidoptera which is the scientific name for moths and butterflies, has the pter at the end. It means scaly wing. So the females don't fit that so much with this species, but that's because they used to have wings and they don't anymore. Yay, evolution. All right. I think I missed a couple of other things up here. Yeah, tiny antenna. Oh yeah, yeah. So like at first when I saw those antennae, if I only looked at the moth, didn't know what species it was, I would think maybe it's a female because those antennae are not very feathery. You know, when you think of a moth, when someone draws a moth, they have these big feathery antennae. But in this case, I guess they don't need it. I don't know beyond that why. Frank, also, I see that you said earlier, does it help with silent flight like owls? And were you saying the scales? And that's you're onto something there, because that's a whole big topic that's being explored right now. And that is, there's evidence and there have been publications on how the scales of some moths, or probably many moths for that matter, have sonar jamming characteristics, or like nano structures to help protect them in the arms race against bats, the evolutionary race of the prey and the predator. So those scales do so much. They're also hydrophobic, so they repel water, for example. They do all sorts of different things, which also not just keeps them from getting like weighed down from the wetness that water can bring, which would hinder flight, but it also keeps them from getting what's it called? From getting cold. So hypothermia in that case as well, when there's water around. So so for anyone who's coming in now, just another reminder that I'm doing a fundraiser to get my own microscope. I don't have my own microscope or dissection scope or stereoscope that I use for live broadcasting, and that is something that I'm looking to obtain, especially before I go off to Borneo, because I want to bring one with me to Borneo. And so I'll post the link in the chat here on HAPS, or you can look up Microscope for Wildlife Streaming, and I think my name, I think it might pop up that way on GoFundMe or something like that. But also any awards that you give, any Periscope, if you still have leftover hearts on Periscope, you can drop them in before it all expires at the end of March. That's all going to go towards this fund. Also, all the support on my Patreon account also is going towards this fund as well. So, a GoFundMe, yes. And we're almost there. We've hit the 2,000 mark, and the amount that I need to get the stereoscope is $2,200 US dollars, and we're at 2,013 last I checked. So, oh, you beat me to it, David, but I'll post it too. There's the link. I was waiting for it to load. Yep, a GoFundMe. And my Patreon is also a good way to keep up to date or get the inside scoop on what's happening next. For example, I'm going to be teaching I just sent this out to Patreon supporters earlier this week, but I'm teaching an Atlas Obscura course on entomology. So I'll share more about that in the future though. But okay, Frank is saying silent flight, the fringe on the wing made me think about it. Yeah, that fuzziness, that softness, that if you were on Twitter, you saw me comparing cats to owls. They're all really soft too, which helps them be silent. It is a stereo microscope, so we need 2 announcements. That's right. One from over here, one from the left, and one from the right. Whoosh! Yep. Yeah, so that's what's going on. And because it's spring, like I said before, we have all these different organisms that are popping out that we're going to want to check out under the scope. I already have a little jumping spider, a bull jumper that will be fun to look at. And then also another spider that I haven't identified yet, but also a jumper, which will be fun to look at too. I'll probably bring these out during next Tuesday when we're doing Sips with Sebastian. Sebastian was our guest from a couple weeks ago. We're going to have a casual coffee chat style broadcast once every month or so for funsies. Very casual, so come on by. Frank says, awaiting stereoscopes with red and green glasses now. Oh yeah, yep. 3D. Did you capture the spiders recently? Yeah, just in the last 2 days. Like everything's come into life. It's very exciting. It's a party. And yay, Guru or Alexander. I'm glad that you're coming over to HAPS. You can use my referral code if you want to. You like my last name. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah. And if you're also interested, I encourage you can do Patreon sort of sponsorships here on HAPS, which is pretty cool. You can also do that on my Patreon as well. And you can join the Patreon for as little as $2 a month, which is fun as well. And if you have suggestions of things that you would like to receive as a patron as well, let me know, because I'm also all ears about that. But Dan says HAPS 3D Future will be released on April 1st, 2021. Oh yeah. April Fools. Yeah. Yeah, okay. The other news, if you haven't heard, that I did send out to patrons is that I now have a page with a schedule for the bug scope, which is on my homepage. You can go to my website through my profile, whether it's on Periscope or Twitter, wherever. I think that my link trees are all there, so you can see, you can find my website and find the bug scope schedule, which I'm really excited about too, because we have a bunch of guests lined up. We're going to have a Firefly expert, Oliver Keller, who actually has joined us on Periscope before. And he sponsored a Periscope broadcast that I did 2 years ago on fireflies. Like, he supplied me with the information, because oftentimes what I do is I dig around the literature to gather the information on the organisms that I'm about to share with you. And so it's made way easier when someone like him can just be like, here's the info, or I can just ask him the questions and he'll supply me with the questions I think people will be, or the info that people will be interested in, or that people ought to know. So thanks for sharing the Patreon account too, David. I really appreciate that. And then on Earth Day, we're gonna have Autumn Angelis, who's a mosquito expert. She works over in New Jersey on mosquitoes. She's going to join us, and I'm really excited to have her on. I've been wanting to have her on for a couple years now. She joined us on Periscope in the past, and she even identified one of the insects that were in the collection for us, right, live on the broadcast, which was so much fun. I'm so excited to have her on video here in the future. So, so check out that. Stay tuned. Bookmark that schedule page. I think I have it. I'll put it in the chat here. Although the tricky thing is that I like having the events linger around, and I've noticed that the past events, you can't look at the past events on Squarespace, so I'm still learning about this page, so bear with me as I figure it out. But I do want the events, even when they're past, to still be available. So still working on that. Okay. All right, well, that's all I have for you, but please, if you enjoy the bug scope, consider chipping in to bring us down the final stretch to the goal to get the dissection scope. So yeah, so these earrings, they are bee earrings. I think they're fun because they glow in the light like honey. And they were given to me by a viewer back a bunch of years ago. Actually, some of you might remember that broadcast. I know Terrence does. I don't know if he's present right now, but Terrence referred to the broadcast recently, where I received the package from Tina, who I'm not sure how. The tricky thing about online and having this community is sometimes people come and people go, and like you don't really know, you don't have a connection to them anymore, which is why I definitely appreciate it when you guys sign up for when you sign up for my email list and things like that, because then I can like give you updates or like see how you're doing or something like that. Because I don't know where she went, but Tina gave these to me, and I did a broadcast that day with a package where like I pretended that Saffron had already opened the package, and she was in the box when I opened it up. So it was fun. Very playful. Thank you, Deanna, for the support. That's going to go towards the microscope fund. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. So yeah, thank you guys. I don't know what's going on. I think this moth plays dead. I hope it does, because it's lying on its back now. Let's look at it one more time before I wrap up this broadcast. I also will share that Georgia, who joined me back in the fall to talk about bats, she's starting to broadcast, you guys. Thank you. Yeah. Oh, Dina. Thank you, Dina, also for helping me pronounce your name. Thank you, Dina. Cool. She's going to do a broadcast at 5:30 on skulls. So that will be interesting, I'm sure. So let's take one more look at this moth, and then we can wrap it up. And thank you guys all for the support here on Patreon, here on HAPS, and also on the GoFundMe. So, okay. Zooming in. So I hope it's playing dead. I mean, it was alive and healthy just a moment ago. When my phone fell, it did kind of knock the paper that it was on, so maybe that scared it, hopefully not to death, but hopefully to playing death. Hi, the man, how are you doing? So let me zoom in just a little bit. So here it is upside down. I wonder if it doesn't have a mouth. It looks like it doesn't have a mouth. It might not have a mouth. We're looking at a spring cankerworm moth. Let's look at those eyes. Some insects have really colorful eyes, but this one has very plain eyes. We can at least see all the ommatidia that make up its field of view. All those little bumps are each a cell that take in light. You saw it flinch a bit? Cool. Yeah, I saw it wiggle its foot a moment ago too. So I think it's playing dead. You can see all its legs. Yeah, it's flinching its leg right there. Hi, little moth. I feel like shaking its hand. I'll try shaking its hand and see what happens with my pinky. My finger's like way too big to shake its hand. Let me see if I can try. It might just cause it to play dead even more. That's probably what's happening. I wonder if it knows it's on international TV. I know. Maybe that's why it's playing dead. It's like, I didn't sign up for this. What's going on here? So I think it got scared earlier and it's playing dead. Oh, but we can see its antenna way better this way. And also, those are interesting scales up there on the shoulders. Let's zoom into that. Interesting. I don't really know what that is, but it has one on each side. On that side and on this side. I don't know what that is, that lighter patch. It could be some sort of pheromone thing, but I really don't know. And then, where's the antenna? Here's the antenna. Let's zoom in. Stage fright. Yep. That's right, the man. Some moths freeze up when they're on camera. Do they make good pets? Do insects make good pets, or moths, you mean? Do moths make good pets? Moths can make good pets. If you want a moth as a pet, I recommend getting a giant silkworm moth. I think the difficult thing is that they go through a long period of, I don't know if it's called diapause or not, to tell the truth, but when they're metamorphizing in their cocoon, that's, oh, I didn't even, anyway. So I'm going to flip it over again because it was really cool to see sorry for being blurry. Actually, you know what's really interesting is that I think that the scales on this side, they don't really seem to be, oh, maybe they are as iridescent as the other side. Maybe Darko is tracking it. Maybe. Oops, it flipped. Wow, it just flipped over. How did it flip over like that? Maybe my laugh, the gust of air, pushed it over. So here's the other side again, and there's that beautiful fringe on the edge. Beautiful fringes. Moths did it first. Fringes. And you can see the different types of scales, the long scale versus the short scale. And the fringed, the fringes have fringed, the fringe scales have even fringed edges as well. Frank says, I bet they visit the bug scope themselves when they're not on cam. Ooh. Sneaky insects. So yeah, moths can make good pets. They do eat a lot. They're very, very hungry as caterpillars. So do be prepared with lots of food for your baby moth if you do get a baby moth. Yeah, so. All right, thanks for being on the broadcast with us, little moth. If only we could know what's going on through its head. But we shall not know. Shall we ever know? I do not know. Not in my lifetime, probably. Okay. All right, I see the question, are moths prehistoric? Yes. Is prehistoric pre when history was written down? Well, I can definitely tell you yes, because if dinosaurs are prehistoric, moths are prehistoric because they were around then too. So fractal fringe. We need to go even more in depth and look closer. Maybe the fringes have more fringes, etc., etc. David Haddon says, I usually have a few leps larvae on the go. Wouldn't call them pets as such, though. Yeah, that's the tricky thing. When you rear bugs, you can have it as a pet, but when you start having a lot of them and rearing a lot of them, they feel a little less like pets because you have so many of them, if that makes sense. And they're there for such a short time. Yeah, very different from having a pet spider. Spiders make great pets, especially the tarantulas, which can live for dozens of years. Although Fluffy, you guys, I thought that Fluffy was dead yesterday. Fluffy, let's see if Fluffy's around to look at Fluffy while we are here. Because why not? I thought Fluffy was dead yesterday because Fluffy was kind of curled in the side of the container. But Fluffy is still alive. Although Fluffy only lives to be 2 or 3 years old as a male, and Fluffy's already like basically 2 years old, so it's only a matter of time, sadly. Let's see if Fluffy's around. I see Fluffy. There's Fluffy. Fluffy's over there. Hi, Fluffy. See that Fluffy? Fluffy spider. Okay. My sick snake, Tigra, who I did a broadcast for a couple weeks ago, has passed away. I brought her to be euthanized this past weekend, so very, very sad. She was just losing weight. She had cancer, and so she was just losing weight and getting weaker. But she lived a long life. She was 19 years old, and corn snakes live to be 15 to 20. So it's definitely weird with a snake because you don't see them, you don't really see them, I don't know, they don't look old when they're old. There's no gray hair, there's no, she wasn't getting more fragile or anything like that in her elderly age, but I guess with that, cancer caught up to her. So yeah, cool. Fluffy is alive. Yes, Fluffy is alive. No wearing glasses. Yep, eyesight was intact as far as we could tell. So yeah. And everyone else is doing well as far as I know. And the one spider, Sage, she hasn't left the jar yet either, as far as I can tell. She's just gonna live in a terrarium for the rest of her life. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe no. She'll probably wander out when she's hungry, because when I put her into that terrarium, she was very, very well fed and very plump, aka you can see her abdomen very large. And hi, Jeremy. Hope you're well. And so spiders don't have much of a reason, unless they're looking for a mate, to leave their den and enclosure. So they'll just hang out until they get hungry again, and then they'll go out of their den and look around. So she probably won't leave for another week or so. She'll probably just stay in that little jar inside of the larger terrarium. But Saffron's been out because she's been hungry, and I did feed her yesterday, and I got a cool slow-mo that I'll post on my Instagram story, so look out for that. Yeah. All right, I'm going to go now, but thanks guys for joining. I'll probably do another broadcast or two. Potentially I'll do one just on Periscope since March is coming to an end, and that way I can say hello directly and to those who are still lingering on Periscope, and try to bring them in the big move to the next chapter of the Bugscope live streaming. So thank you, David Dunn. Thank you, Jean, Dion. Blessings to you too. Thank you, the Med, for coming by, and Frank and Dina and whoever else is still present. You can say hello if you're still present, because I can't really tell in this new format, which is very different, of course, from Periscope. But yeah, still have to figure out the PowerPoint thing, but I'll be working on that this weekend to figure out how to do PowerPoint on HAPS. All right, without further ado, goodbye, everybody. Have a great weekend, and